Right. Diving in today, folks, and we're going way back in time. We're talking about Sun Tzu, The Art of War, but specifically Chapter 2, Waging War. Now, this is about more than just, armies clashing on a battlefield. This is about strategy for any high-stakes situation where you gotta manage resources and really think ahead.
For sure.
So for all you learners out there, we're going to try to unpack how Sun Tzu, how he actually thought about conflict. And trust me, the guy was centuries ahead of his time.
Absolutely. I mean, like, right off the bat, he just hits you with this really stark reality of war. He talks about thousands of chariots, like heavy chariots, 100,000 soldiers all decked out in armor. And just the daily cost to keep all that running was like 1,000 ounces of silver.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's just it really sets the stage for just how expensive war really is.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not just the soldier, right? It's feeding them. It's the weapons, the transport. It's
the whole supply chain.
The whole thing, and this crazy cost that leads right into his warning about letting a war drag on. Why was he so against these long drawn out campaigns?
Well, because they just drain you. Like literally, they're like a slow bleed.
Okay.
Your weapons get dull. The troops, their morale just goes in the toilet. Your fighting strength, it just dwindles away. And probably most important, a long war, it just sucks the life out of a nation's resources. You get weaker and weaker, and meanwhile you've got these rivals. They're just sitting there waiting to pounce.
It's like vultures.
Exactly. And once they do, it can be really, really tough to recover. Like a tech startup, right?
Okay.
They've got this limited funding. They're going to launch their product like yesterday, but they keep delaying and delaying.
Right.
The longer it takes, the higher the chances are that a competitor is just going to swoop in and eat their lunch.
Yeah, makes sense. So, all right, so here's something I don't quite get. He talks about, how rushing into things is stupid.
Right.
But then he says that cleverness, it never takes a long time.
Yeah.
It's like, so how do you balance those two ideas?
Well, it's like this. He's not saying you should just charge in blindly. You have to be prepared. But he's also saying that you don't gain anything by letting a conflict just fester and drag on. Whether it's a war, a business deal, a creative project, nobody wins when things just stall out. The real skill is knowing when to strike, quickly and decisively when you've got the upper hand.
Gotcha. So then the question becomes, when does a smart leader, when do they actually commit?
Only when they absolutely have to, and only when they've got a clear advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, Sun Tzu, he makes it very clear that this decision to go to war, to commit to anything really big, it's not something to be taken lightly. Yeah. Because, once you go down that road, there's no going back. You destroy something, you can't just wave a magic wand and put it back together. You miss an opportunity, you can't just rewind time and get it back. It's serious business.
So that kind of leads into this idea he has of winning without making any mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not about luck. It's about preparing so thoroughly that victory is almost like it's inevitable. Like you said, you've already won before you even start.
Exactly. And that's the hallmark of a truly skilled player. They stack the deck so heavily in their favor that losing becomes almost impossible. And then they just wait for the right moment to make their move. It's like a chess grandmaster. They're not just reacting to what their opponent does. They're thinking 10 moves ahead. They're setting traps. They're controlling the board. And then, boom, checkmate.
So speaking of groundwork, he lays out this framework, measurement, estimation, calculation, balancing chances, and then victory. It's like a scientific method for winning, for warfare.
It is. It's a very systematic approach. I mean, think about measurement. That's understanding the terrain you're fighting on, knowing what your opponent has at their disposal. Estimation is figuring out how big their army is, how many resources they have.
Okay.
Calculation is really analyzing, your strengths and weaknesses against theirs.
Right.
Balancing of chances is like, okay, based on all that, what are the odds of success? And if you've done all that right, victory, well, that's the natural conclusion. It just flows. He uses this really powerful image. He says a well-prepared force going up against an unprepared one, it's like dropping a huge weight onto a tiny little grain. It's a foregone conclusion.
So for you, the learner, the big takeaway here is this. Sun Tzu's Waging War, it's not just about ancient battles. It's a masterclass in strategy, in thinking ahead, in understanding the real cost of anything you take on, whether it's a war, a business deal, a relationship, whatever. You got to be prepared. You got to understand that dragging things out, it rarely helps. And you got to be aiming for a decisive win while using your resources wisely.
And that brings up a really, really interesting question to think about.
Right.
So considering, how much emphasis Sun Tzu puts on preparation and the really nasty consequences of a long, hard struggle, how could you, the learner, how could you apply these ideas to your own life right now? I mean, what are the battles you're facing, whether at work or at home, that you could win before they even start?
Food for thought, right?
Definitely.
Thanks for diving deep with us today, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.